Hello, WA7JNJ and a walking trail near my house here in Marysville, Washington. Got a little bit of snow last night near the end of December and wanted to do a quick overview of some of the insights and learnings through this last year. So let's get to it. As I look over the year, I thought I'd start with doing a Summit on the Air overview. It was my third year doing summits on the air and I activated 36 summits this year, mostly over a 4-month period of time. Now that I'm still mostly working from home, I definitely need to be more consistent with exercise and hiking throughout the year. Of the 36 summits this year, 19 were first-time summits for me. And a few things stood out were a few trips to Oregon, one for the Summit to Summit party, another time a very long driving day activating a couple summits, and then a 3-day camping trip. Overall, fun to explore both in eastern Washington and all around our state and Oregon this year. Knowing your safety or comfort limits when hiking is very important. I still have activated 99 unique summits and wanted the 100th to be a special one. McClellan Butte has been a challenge to me ever since I saw it from Mount Defiance and saw the YouTube videos from others that have hiked to the summit. I wanted to get the exercise one day and decided to hike to McClellan Butte. Got to the top, stared at the rock face you needed to get up, tried it a couple times, looked down below, and realized I really needed to wait for another day. It's different for everybody. I know many SOTA goats have activated the summit, but I also got a response from another SOTA goat who said he's also held off on activating just due to the exposure. So just be safe and know your limits. A lot of great summits this year, but Winchester Mtn was the one that stood out by far. Starting at Twin Lakes and having the views all the way up, a different area of views and lakes, and looking up at Mount Larrabee with the red rock. Just a gorgeous area and highly recommend this summit. I've run into other SOTA activators on summits, but am often last minute in my decisions and have activated summits alone. So this year it was fun to plan an activation both with Josh WU7H on Winchester Mtn and then David KJ7LSM on Sauk Mountain. I didn't get any video with David on Sauk Mountain because it was smoky and we kept the activation short due to all these small mosquitoes on summit, but a great day and really fun to activate with both of them. Summits on the Air is what got me into hiking, and most of my hikes the last couple years have been related to SOTA only. I got an invite to hike to Camp Muir at Mount Rainier and decided to do that this year. It's not a SOTA summit, but at around 10,000 feet I knew it would be my hardest hike so far and a great challenge. Started at 7 o'clock in the morning to sunny skies, got to Camp Muir about 2 o'clock in the afternoon with pretty cold weather and a little bit of snow and clouds coming in. So all kinds of weather, but a really great challenging time hiking up there with Ken Squires. Next, I'll give a quick Parks on the Air overview. And I usually include POTA as part of Summits on the Air, but it is fun to do parks only. It's been great to get me to places I've never been to around our state, and sometimes it's been more challenging to get contacts in a park than at the top of a mountain. Parks on the Air has a lot of awards, and one I got this year was 30 unique parks. Now, there's a few others, but that stood out and fun to get to a few more parks this year than last year. What stood out this year was for 7QP, a radio contest in May, I activated 5 parks at 3 locations. Getting to Samish Overlook at 6 a.m. in the morning to activate both PNW National Scenic Trail and Blanchard State Forest was a really great time and gorgeous views from this area. Highly recommend you drive out and check out Samish Overlook. The views are amazing and it's a great spot to go. Moving on to CW, it's been a slow journey for me to learn CW, but I finally made my first few contacts this year. My first one was chasing Whiskey 7 Delta Daryl when he was on a very close summit to my house. And then it was great to have Josh, WU7H, help me on my next few contacts when we're on Winchester Mtn. A lot more learning to do over the next year, and looking forward to at least start by chasing some more Summit on the Air and Park on the Air activators as a way to continue learning. My HT over the last 2 years had been the Yaesu FT70DR, and this year I finally purchased the Yaesu FT3DR. I wanted the dual receive for summit to summit parties and just dual monitoring. I also wanted to have GPS and APRS texting capabilities. What I liked about the FT3DR was I got great audio reports from the very first time I started using the radio. I used the GPS feature multiple times to check for summit elevation as a backup check. I did like the dual monitor for just listening, but when I was activating a summit, it got distracting, so I'd usually mute the second frequency. I did learn how to do APRS texting, which was very cool, but I've got to refresh my memory on how to do that and need some quick activation cards. I'm not sure if it was in my head getting a new radio with the FT3DR or using a Rollup J-pole more often. I seem to say more often this year, you know, I think I'm having interference on this summit. You expect it on some summits like Devil's Mountain, where I missed a summit to summit because I didn't have a bandpass filter. But on many summits with no towers, I would hear weather stations, or people would tell me I should be hearing other stations calling. So again, not sure if it was in my head, not fully scientific, but I did seem to have more interference this year. I did finally purchase a bandpass filter for 2 meter, and I'm excited to try that out in 2022. Should you use a Baofeng for SOTA? I always say to start with what you have when you're doing summits on the air, parks in the air, and don't feel like you need to buy anything new. My very first SOTA activation was on Mount Erie using a Baofeng radio and an Arrow antenna. One of the chasers told me that I really should be hearing quite a few other stations that were calling for me, and I could not hear them. I immediately bought the Yaesu FD70DR when it was on sale and started using that for all my future activations. I went back to Mount Erie this year and wanted to do a test to see if it was really different. And so I had the FD70DR and my Baofeng and used a Rollup J-pole antenna. While I was using a Baofeng radio, there was one conversation I was listening to where I could barely hear one side of the conversation. I then attached the FD70DR and heard both sides of the conversation extremely clearly. One simple test, but if there's one thing you upgrade, upgrading your radio is really important. When it came to VHF and UHF antennas this year, I focused on using a Rollup J-pole more often. My antenna of choice has been the Nelson Rollup J-pole antenna from eBay, and always have both the dual band 2 meter 70 centimeter and the 220 with me, either as primary or backup antennas. Overall, a Rollup J-pole is really a great option and antenna you should have. When I was on Mount Fremont, I used both a dual band Rollup J-pole and then the 220 elk antenna, and got great signal reports for both. I made contact with WA7JNJ on all 3 bands and got great signal reports, but a little bit better on 220 with the elk antenna. I looked at my prior year log for Mount Fremont, where I used the elk log periodic for 2 meter and 70 centimeter and a Rollup J-pole for 220. I made great long distance contacts with both antennas. The other example was the Oregon Summit to Summit party. I hooked up both the Rollup J-pole and the elk log periodic. For some reason, I couldn't hear that many stations with the Rollup J-pole, but heard almost all of them with the elk antenna. Again, one quick example that's not scientific. In that case, having a directional antenna was my preference. So again, both great options. If I'm wanting a little bit more distance, having the directionality of an elk antenna is my preference. In the past for HF, I've primarily used a PAC-10 20 meter end fed. This year I wanted to have a 40 meter option, primarily for more local contacts. I purchased 2 different antennas this year to try out. One was the Wolf River Coil Take It Along Mini. I used this antenna both for parks and summits, and often it didn't really stand out as impressing me. After being spoiled with just throwing up an end-fed wire very quickly, radials and set up a Wolf River Coil took a little bit of getting used to. The antenna really proved itself to me on Beacon Rock, where it was a very small summit later in the day and I was looking to make some local contacts. I had tried 2 meter, but no one was around, set up the Wolf River Coil, threw the radials over the side of the cliff, and made 8 40 meter contacts very quickly. It is nice to have a vertical antenna option, and this was a great choice. I'm not sure I'll use it for all my SOTA activations, but I definitely enjoy it as being an option. The other antenna I purchased was a SOTABEAMS quad band linked dipole. Again, after getting sprilled using a PACTENA, which was very easy to set up, this seemed like a lot more work, but I did get used to it pretty quickly. I like that you can use 100 watts with it or QRP, and I like the idea of being resonant on each of the bands. One time this antenna really shone was when I set it up across the street for Worldwide DX Single Sideband Contest. I used a 100 watt radio and made contacts all around the world, many countries for the first time. The surprising thing is that many of them were on the 15 meter band. While the quad band isn't made for 15 meter, the 40 meter did work great. Overall, 2021 was a great year of both learning and exploring, and hopefully this was a little inspiration to get out and explore some new places in this new year. Thanks again for watching the video. If you've got any comments or feedback of things that you learned this year, please put those in the comments below. Thanks again for watching, and on to another year of learning and exploring. 73 from WA7JNJ.